And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, These things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that openeth, and no man shutteth, and shutteth, and no man openeth. I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, to try them that dwell upon the earth. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God. And I will write upon him my new name. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches.
Praise the Lord. We're here in Alaşehir, Turkey, where the remains of the ancient city of Philadelphia, where the church was that Jesus wrote one of the letters to the 7 different churches of Asia Minor. And you can see these big columns made of bricks and stones, and it looks like back when this place was in its prime, there was these huge arches that connected these 4 gigantic pillars. And we got here a little bit late, so we can't walk inside. The place is closed, but we can see it all from the outside. It's pretty amazing. You see that these ancient Greek pillars are still here, many of them. It's just beautiful seeing what's left of this ancient architecture. There's some kind of Greek carving on that piece of marble right there. What do you think of this place, Tony?
Yeah, obviously it would have been nice to come inside, but you know, I was telling Dakota how, at least architecturally speaking, it's interesting how they would have done the arches, how they laid the bricks out, and if you look how high it is, I mean, that would have been, you would have had to been standing on top of there to layer a brick after brick perfectly enough, and have had to have them structurally stable so that when they were completed, it wouldn't collapse. It's just incredible, you know. I just am in awe right now of the architecture, and it's beautiful, you know.
Yeah.
So as you can see here in Philadelphia, the city has been built around this ancient city. We're right in the center of Alashehir.
Yeah, Alaşehir.
Alashehir. And the city's just been built around this ancient Philadelphia city, where the first century Church of Philadelphia was. And it's unbelievable amount of rich history that took place here. This was a very righteous church, a church that was really following God. God was commending them for keeping his name, keeping the faith. He set before them an open door. You know, I want to speak to that right now, brothers and sisters. God has given us an open door to go to Turkey. God has unbelievably parted the seas for us. He has given us unbelievable favor with the authorities, the police officers, the people to preach the gospel in these streets, to actually have the megaphone turned up playing the translator. And I just want to let you know that's incredible, that the opportunities God's given us there. Mm-hmm. God's giving you an open door. God has opened a door for you to go into all the world and preach the gospel. A lot of people, they don't want to walk through that door. They think that door is like an iron door that's shut, that nobody can go through, and there's no way that I could ever go to the nations. There's no way that I could ever go to these places and preach the gospel in Africa or South America or whatever. people think there's no way I could ever do that.
Yeah, they think it's too dangerous,
Or it's too hard,
or
it's too dangerous, it's too expensive, it's too,
or
you know,
it's not,
whatever.
or I can't learn the language.
There's too many barriers. But he's telling the Church of Philadelphia, I'm setting before you an open door. No man can shut that door. See, Satan can't stop the gospel. He can try to persecute Christians that are preaching the gospel, but he never is able to actually stop the gospel. And so God was showing this Church of Philadelphia, look, he never had one evil thing to say about them. No corrections were given to this church. There were only two churches, Smyrna and Philadelphia. No corrections. He didn't tell them to repent. He didn't tell them that they were doing something that was wrong. He said, I'm setting before you an open door. I commend you for keeping my name. The Church of Philadelphia write, these things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that openeth and no man shutteth, and shutteth and no man openeth. I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them come to worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will also keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast thou hast, that no man take thy crown. He that overcometh will I make to be a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down from heaven from my God. And I will write upon him my new name. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches.
I'm just walking around, looking at the rest of this whole area where the ruins of the ancient Greek city, and you can kind of see a little bit of what it must have looked like in the first century during the time of the Roman Empire. We saw these things before when we went to Ephesus, these ancient stone sarcophagi where these are like ancient tombs that they put dead people in. Wow, you can see that big column right there. There's not much left of it like the other ones. Oh, it's a bunch of stray cats. So here's some more of the ancient city of Philadelphia, where there was a Christian church or a group of believers that lived here in this part of Asia Minor, modern day Western Turkey. I noticed, Brother Tony, they have a bunch of these ancient Greek tombs here. They look just like the ones in Ephesus that we saw.
Oh, are you talking about? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's
Yep.
right. They do. They look very
So like those ancient sarcophagi, whatever you call them. Yep. Man, this must have looked just incredible when these entire columns were here with big, huge arches connecting them. And then, I mean, you can see like that one, it curves out to the left too, so there must have been more of these huge columns even away from here. Yeah, it'd be cool to see a picture of what historians or archaeologists would say this place looked like in its prime.
When it was full, right?
Like,
yeah, it's almost sad to see how you know, how like little we get to see of it.
yeah.
You know, it'd be awesome to see the full thing. But.
See, it's right here in the middle of this Turkish city of Alaşehir.
Let's do the teachings first, and then we'll.
Crazy how all these Turkish people here.
They don't realize
they don't.
very famous Christian church in the history.
Well, they might. A lot of them probably know that this is an ancient Christian site, but I mean, they don't understand the spiritual meaning behind it or the significance of it.
You speak English? You speak English? So one of the promises given to the church at Philadelphia was, to him that overcometh will I make to be a pillar in the house of my God, and he shall go no more out. And if you look here, you'll see these massive pillars.
Huge.
They were very familiar with what these pillars were. It was, I mean, obviously Jesus knows all things. I mean, he knew exactly what the layout of their city looked like. The city consisted of these massive square pillars. He said, I'll make a pillar in the house of my God, and ye shall go no more out. He said, I will write upon them the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down from heaven from my God. And I will write upon them my new name. And so, massive pillars. Obviously, this pillar here, if you're looking here, is would have also been the same height as these here. Amazing. But this was the city of Philadelphia, which actually the word Philadelphia is brotherly love. That's what the name means.
Yeah, the Greek word for brotherly love is
Philo.
Philo, yeah.
Philo, and Delphia is love. So it's the city of brotherly love. And so here we are, the Church of Philadelphia.
Wow. How God had set before them an open door that no man can shut. And the reason that it says that is because the specific location where these Christians lived in Asia Minor at that time, they were in the perfect location for preaching the gospel in that area and in other areas nearby. And it was just this amazing opportunity for them to be able to reach tons of souls with the gospel. And so the same thing is true for Christians nowadays, is that sometimes God will give us opportunities to be able to go to certain places where we can reach a lot of souls that have never heard the gospel before, or perhaps somewhere where you can reach a lot of people that are open to the gospel and ready to get saved. And so God is a God that gives us these great opportunities.
Praise God. Another thing about this, can we talk about the synagogue of Satan?
Yeah, the synagogue of Satan. So this was a group of Jews that hated the Christians in Philadelphia and persecuted them, and that's why they were called the synagogue of Satan, because the Bible talks about how those who are only Jews according to their heritage or according to the flesh, they're not true people of God. They're not, well, some of them are, but there are those who said they were Jews, but they were really of the synagogue of Satan. So they persecuted the Christians because they hated them for their Christian faith. But God told the Christians in Philadelphia that these Jewish people who weren't saved, they were just ethnically Jews, but they weren't spiritually Jews as born-again Christians are, or born-again Jews are. Because the Bible says in Galatians chapter 3, I believe, that if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed. And it says also in Romans chapter 2,
heirs according to the promise.
Yeah,
right?
Heirs according to the promise. And the last verse in Romans chapter 2, it says that he is not a Jew who is one outwardly, but he is a Jew who is one inwardly, who has the circumcision of the heart and not just the circumcision of the flesh, whose praise is of men, or whose praise is of God and not of men. And so God told the church in Philadelphia that he would cause these Jewish people who hated them as Christians, he would cause them to have to acknowledge the fact that they were the true people of God. And it says that these Jewish people who didn't believe in the Messiah, they would come and worship God before the feet of these Christians and have to acknowledge that God truly loved them. So that's quite remarkable.
The church in Philadelphia had an issue with these Jews who were coming in, creeping in, trying to bring them back under the law. He said they were of the synagogue of Satan. Now, if Jesus is going to look at the Pharisees and call them children of their father, the devil, because they're doing the works of the devil, he was not afraid to point out these people that were coming into the church and basically claiming that they were the real Jews, and that because they were circumcised and because they kept the law of Moses, that they somehow were going to be inheritors of the promise. When my brother was talking earlier about the book of Galatians, it says those that are Abraham's seed, they are the inheritors of the promise. Those that are of Christ's, okay, those that are a part of the body.
To Christ are Abraham's seed.
Yes. Those that belong to Christ are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise. So if you're not in Christ, you are not a true Jew. You really aren't. You're actually of the synagogue of Satan. That's going to offend a lot of people, and I don't really care. Because the Bible says a true Jew is somebody that is in Christ. Amen. Somebody who is an heir according to the promise. Okay, that is a true Jew, a spiritual born-again Christian. Christianity completes Judaism. Doesn't replace it, it completes it. So if you're not in Christ, you're not complete. You're of your father, the devil. And you need to repent. Mm-hmm. And we're going to tell you the truth.
Yep. And brother, it's really crazy how in the letter to Philadelphia, God says that those who called themselves Jews and are not, that God would cause them to come and worship before the feet of the Christians and acknowledge that God has loved them.
Yes.
So even though they were deceived into thinking that they were the real people of God and the Christians weren't, God was going to open their eyes and make them realize that.
God was going to show them who is really the one to be honored.
Yeah.
It wasn't them. It was going to be the seed of Christ. Those that were in Christ were the ones that were going to receive honor and the open door and become a pillar in the temple of God.
Amen.
It wasn't going to be those that kept the law. It was going to be those that were part of Christ. Those that were going to be inheritors, okay, of all the riches of God.
Amen.